Okay, this is my third try on this one. Yeah, I think my computer was overloaded with stuff and I had to go and throw a bunch of stuff away so I could save some more videos. Anyway, so we're in the middle of the story on the Lighthouse Ranch. I gave you kind of an introduction to it. Remember, it's all secondhand because I never actually lived there, but I did talk to people that spent some time there at the Lighthouse Ranch in, near Eureka, California. Back in the, I guess it'd be the 80s. Yeah. Yeah, they started in the late 70s and then went through the 80s, went 25 years. Okay, so let's start on this story here. Dan was on drugs. He might have told me which ones, but I don't remember what they were. So, like most narcoman, that's the Russian there. Like most drug addicts, he'd gone through all his relationships. He'd flunked out of college. He'd lost his job. He's finally at that point where parents give up. They cut off the cash, locked the front door, and told him to come back when he kicked the habit. They didn't know what else to do, and I don't really know either. I've never been in this situation, but I sympathize with those that have. Anyway, Dan still had the keys to the Ford, so he got in and drove west. He needed to start over anyway, and Humboldt County had a reputation as a haven for drug users and pot growers, and he thought he would fit in. Besides, he wanted to see the ocean. He didn't have any money for motels, so he stayed on the road, basically taking cat naps, pulling over, sleeping in the car, fueling his habit, and trying hard not to get anything or get arrested. Anyway, he made it, but he forgot to stop. He drove into the Pacific. It was a combination of a lack of sleep, hazy reflexes, general apathy, and just plain misjudging the tide. Yeah, the tide comes and goes. It's a bit mysterious that way. Anyway, the ranch was always on the lookout for guys like Dan, because guys like Dan had literally no place to go, nobody who cared, and usually nothing to lose. So why would they turn down a free meal and a bed? Anyway, the founder, Jim Durkin, said their motto was, "Whosoever will may come." They never turned anyone away in a crisis. But not everyone, Jim said, got to stay. Everyone had to follow the rules, and for Dan, that meant if he wanted more than one night's lodging and a meal, he had to give up the drugs. And they they knew drugs. They would know if he was lying or not. Anyway, by that time, Dan had used up his supply. He had no money, no prospects of getting any money, no friends or connections in California, and his only possession, the Pinto, was bobbing in the surf. So he had nothing to lose. He might as well stay. It'd be a good time to give up the drugs. Okay, we'll get back to Dan. All right, we'll come back to him. But first, let's pause and go over here. Maureen was crazy. Well, they didn't call her crazy. The doctors always use words like psychosis, schizophrenic episode, and other complicated words to describe her behavior. But at 15, they were already wrapping her up in those white coats you only see on TV. Yeah. Just for her own protection and the safety of others. Doctors began to speak to her parents about a long-term commitment, and all hope was just draining away. I don't remember how Maureen found the ranch. At one point, the courts began to sentence young offenders, to a term there instead of prison. But it usually wasn't nearly as effective that way. The ranch was an open campus, there were no fences, and people could leave at any time. In fact, they needed to know they were there because they chose to be there. And I assume that was the case with Maureen. She must have at some point decided to give it a shot. Anyway, she was 18 now, no high school diploma, didn't have a stable mind really to interpret the world around her, and the ranch didn't have any doctors. Most of the members were just a little bit older than Maureen, and really now, what were they going to do? What kind of therapy or whatever could they do for her? Anyway, there was little chance for success, so why even try? Why jeopardize their success? Threaten their community? I mean, would she hurt someone? There were kids there at the ranch too, But they remember their motto: "Whosoever will may come," and Maureen could come, and they would try to help her. Okay, we'll get back to Maureen too. Okay, so far from home. When I moved to Humboldt County, I too was pretty far from home, from my home in Southern California. It was a 13 and a half hour drive if you went straight through, and I did once. No, stopped twice for gas. That was all. Anyway, you don't really know how much you miss. You'll miss your family until they're just no longer there. You can't call them on the phone. It's long distance. There's nobody there to help out or to talk to. I thought life would be cheaper in the wet and windy coastal area of Northern California, but I was wrong. I guess John Locke was right, that scarcity drives prices up. Anyway, so I looked and looked for a cheap apartment, but I couldn't find anything. I finally found what was the worst place in the worst neighborhood at a price I could probably afford. I think it was $300 a month or something. It was out on a sandbar. And the sand was encroaching up on the house. It sounds like it could be nice. Maybe if I was single, but I don't want to describe everything to you. But it was a lower income, and it looked like we weren't going to fit in too well. Anyway, but then I thought, if I can't move my family into a place like this. The house is all beat up, torn up, holes in the wall. If this is the best we can do, we might as well give up and move back to Sunnymead. But then the next day I found something. It was a cute little 2-bedroom condo on a quiet street in Eureka. I still remember the address, 4051 Maple Avenue. You can look it up on Google Maps if you want. They give you the street view. Anyway, I don't remember the price. I think at $200, $250. It was cheaper than the sandbar place. And now we needed to find a way to furnish it. It was completely empty. It had wall-to-wall carpet. So we spent the first week or two just camping out on the floor. At some point, we managed to find some homemade bunk beds for the kids, got them up off the ground. But we were still short a couch and a bed. And that's when I saw the ad in the Tri-City Weekly for a sofa bed. I thought, oh, this is perfect. It's going to do both jobs for us. Someone just around the block was selling their old brown vinyl fold-out for $20. Yeah, it was as ugly as it sounds, yeah. But $20. And in that bar that went across, those old sofa beds, I don't know if they still make them that way. It'll break you in half. Anyway, we jumped in our car. We headed right over because we didn't want to lose this bed. Anyway, I can't remember how I got home exactly. I didn't have a pickup, but I had an old Chevy Impala, and I was just a couple blocks away. So I think we put it up on the hood, not the hood, the trunk area and the roof, and just kind of leaned it a bit, tied it on so it wouldn't fall off. Like I said, we were just going a couple blocks. Anyway, the seller came with me. He said, hey, let's just leave the wives here, and I'll help you get it in the house, carry it in. And he came over. I thought they were just super, super nice people. We hadn't met anybody in the neighborhood. These people were just a couple blocks from us. They had young kids too. And I thought, these could become some really good close friends. And they did. And so he took it to the house with me. And I just thought it was nice to know we had some good neighbors, someone to call on in times of trouble. In fact, they were the first people that we really met in Eureka. And their names were Dan and Maureen. Do those names sound familiar? Yeah, Dan, I guess I didn't have this written down, but the conclusion of this is that Dan is a doctor now, a medical doctor. He's living somewhere on the East Coast. I'm on Facebook with him. I can't remember what state he's in. Maureen, when we met her, was a nurse already, and I think she still is. So somehow, they're at the ranch. They've got their problems worked out. They had their kids. They're, of course, all grown now. I think they got grandkids, like most of us do. So, so for them, the ranch worked out. They could tell you a lot more stories than I could. Okay.